Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that the regular meeting commence at the hour of 7 p.m. And be it further resolved that Council acknowledges that we are meeting in the Robinson Superior Treaty Area on lands that have been traditionally used by several Indigenous nations. But we would like to pay special recognition to our closest Indigenous neighbours, the communities of Bittergon, Nishnabeg, and Pic-Mobert First Nation. We wish to recognize the long history of the First Nations and Métis people in our region specifically and show respect to them today. All in favour? I'll call the meeting to order. Is there any addition or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none, is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest or general nature thereof? Seeing none. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that the agenda be approved as circulated. All in favour? Next item is a delegation, I think, so we're on.
Great. Thank you, Council, and through you, Mr. Chair, I'd like to introduce the team from Think Design, who's been working with us over the past 6 months on the Recreation Parks and Facilities Master Plan. Mike, would you like to introduce everyone?
Sure. So I'm Mike Tucker. I'm a partner with Think Design. And Leandra Coriel-Ferguson from my office is also here. And Mary Catherine Mihak of Mihak.
That's me.
Great. And you can, we have to let you share the screen. Who's going to do the presentation?
I will.
Okay. I'll give you hosting privileges, and you can take it away.
Okay. Can you can see the intro slide?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So thank you very much for allowing us to present to you the Recreation Parks and Facilities Master Plan. So I've got a 10-minute presentation, and afterwards, Mary Catherine and Andrew and I are happy to answer any questions or clarifications that we may have. So the purpose of the study was to identify and evaluate current and projected recreation parks needs and trends in the township, assess the township recreation and park services, infrastructure, policy, and partnerships, provide recommendations on new and or improved facilities, parks, programs, events, and provide guidance on the potential role of the municipality as a service provider. So we started the process in the fall of last year, and community engagement was done remotely due to COVID-19 and gap restrictions. So we used the My Manage Watch site to do interviews, had a random telephone survey, online survey, community, and we surveyed user groups. So based on our review, interviews, and the survey responses, we assessed the needs of the community and developed recommendations. It is also important to note that we coordinate our work with the findings and recommendations of 2 plans that were also being developed. These are the Community Improvement Plan and the Multi-Use Trail Master Plan, which is also being presented by Think Design. So in the Master Plan, our findings are divided into parks, programs, and facilities. So for parks, we determined that the community is well supplied. However, some investment is needed to improve or replace existing infrastructure. Improvements are needed to support unstructured outdoor recreation for all ages, and parks are well situated to support programming, special events, and tourism. So in the plan, we have assigned each recommendation a letter number code and summarized in tables the estimated costs for budget purposes. Each recommendation is also organized by priority. We have immediate need, which means this year, 2021, short term, in 2 to 5 years, medium, 6 to 10 years, and long-term, more than 10 years. So for park recommendations, we have 23. And the recommendations with green arrows don't have a capital cost associated with them, and instead were executed by municipal staff using existing resources. Across the bottom of this table is the estimated total cost organized by immediate, short-term, medium, term, and long-term. Next slide is the key findings regarding programs. These include preschool-age children and seniors are well served by existing programs. There is a lack of program recreation options for children, teens, and adults, and unstructured outdoor recreation popular among residents. Further consultation with adults is required to provide programming in best interest. Support and collaboration with service providers is required to expand recreation programs. Programs should be developed that will increase use of township parks and facilities. And finally, the township should experiment with alternative program delivery models such as community-based, short-duration programs and intergenerational programs. Now, all 16 of the program recommendations are to be initiated in the immediate short term using existing township resources. Next is facilities. So generally the township is trying to support a facility supply that is largely over half a century old. It was originally provided to serve a much larger population and includes amenities that are not typically provided by small municipalities. So it is proving increasingly difficult to sustain these facilities. So based on 2019 net costs for the community center, pool, ski hill, and golf course, it costs the township approximately $600,000 a year. This works out to a cost of approximately $650 per household to operate these facilities. Among the other specific recommendations in the master plan directed at increasing the use of financial return on facilities, there needs to be a reorientation of municipal responsibility to facility provision. The township may consider privatizing the golf course and focusing efforts on leveraging potentially at ski hill. Both of these directions have been the outcomes of previous studies, and we are reconfirming their relevance. So in summary, the township is overextended in its ability to maintain the existing facility supply and should therefore reorient its responsibilities from major recreation infrastructure. Funding is not readily available to address all needs and is dependent on grants, and the township needs to prioritize capital investment to update and continue to manage infrastructure. So these next three slides show individual improvements for the community center, including the arena, ski hill, golf course, and the community center kitchen. And these figures are from studies previously completed for the township, organized in a sequence that considers their relative priority. We also recognize that the township continues to work to access grants for these improvements. So this slide provides the costs and priority for the community center improvements. This next slide provides the cost and priority for the park pool improvements. And this slide is improvements required for the ski hill. And finally, cost and priority for the golf course and the community center. Now the totals on this slide show that the most significant expenditures should occur between now and the next 5 years. This next slide summarizes a number of recommendations on service planning and operations, most of which focus on increasing facility use, generating additional revenues, supporting service delivery based on demand, and rationalizing the township responsibility and provision. So the second and third points here are important to making sure that actual facility user numbers are known for planning purposes and that the community as a whole develops what it deems to be an equitable, reasonable policy on user fees for municipal services. And then for this last bullet, the arena, for example, operates for many unused hours during the week, and this could be consolidated to fewer operating days until such a time actual demand requires time. 3 more recommendations regarding service delivery. Improve capital reserve funds. Second one, develop revenue sources For example, last-minute ice policy, where the last-minute bookings are charged a higher fee. And the last point, consider options to repurpose or privatize based on cost recovery outcomes and or reprogram space. And finally, recommendations regarding maximizing the potential of the ski belt. So these build on previous studies as well, and they are also recommendations of the multi-use trail master plan. So in summary, the parks and facilities supplied to the community well exceed what is typically provided for size. Significant investment is required in the next 5 years to keep parks and facilities safe and operational. Estimated investment required in 2021 to address immediate repairs and upgrades is $245,000. For the next 2 to 5 years, investment is estimated to be over $3 million. And for the next 6 to 10 years, the level of investment needs to be determined to address the pool's leaking minor. And the long-term investment is estimated to be over $1 million. So thank you very much. If there are any questions, or questions you'd like us to elaborate on, we'd be happy to discuss.
Any questions?
Nothing specific.
Privatization of a golf course. Is that, I wouldn't even know how that would work. It's
Sorry,
something,
what was the
as I was reading this, it was something I was thinking about, but I wouldn't even know how you would go about doing something like
I'm
that.
sorry, what was the question? I missed it.
To privatize the golf course, as opposed to it being municipal run.
Well, you'd have to find somebody who want to spend the kind of money that you need to spend for a community with 2,000 people. It would not, I don't think it would be profitable for anybody to own a private golf course in a small community.
Maybe we could refer the question to the consultants if they have any examples or experience with other communities our size that have private golf courses.
Well, I think, Mayor Catherine Mehat here, I think a lot of smaller communities, there are not municipal golf courses, and I think the other, in terms of what we're looking at for Manitouwadge as a whole, I think we wouldn't want to say this, but the other option is to decommission the golf course entirely if we can't find somebody to operate it privately. That would not be a popular decision, I'm sure, but it's all part of the reorientation of municipal spending to be able to support core facilities and core services. So ideally, would have somebody to purchase it or maybe operate it privately back to municipality. That's another option too. But ideally, these are things that I think have been established as probably an appropriate approach in the past, and we do agree with that. But I understand that it may be difficult to find somebody, but there are other potential options such as decommissioning, which is the last absolute option you want to go for, or just getting somebody to operate it on your behalf under contract. But there was a concern too about people not paying fees to put on the golf course. So those are some of the things that should really occur first, is to try and capture some of those revenues that aren't being paid, and try and build up the cost recovery of the course, at least in the short term, and then see how that happens. If you can build it up to 100%, then that's the ideal. Then it's something that you can continue operating.
Also, something to note: Chapleau, the community of Chapleau has a similar population size, I believe, and they have a private golf course that's 9 holes. I'm not sure if it's profitable or anything else, but it's something that you could look into.
Thanks, Leandra.
Okay.
Yes.
Through the chair, I noticed through the numbers, it was kind of hard to see, but as far as the recreation center is concerned, it said, was it 1.5 million for a new roof on the arena, and all the expenses for the pool, and so on. Now, is that, like, what's the comparative of fixing everything versus a new facility? Like with grants and so on, is that that's something we can look at, or is that, or is it just
I think to replace the facility would be extremely expensive. I think you have to. I don't know if those grants are readily available, but certainly you have to look at your asset management plan. I believe is being updated at this point in time. So you would need to take a look at the long-term implications of fixing versus replacing. But it would, to replace the community center you have would be many millions of dollars. So that would be something that, and at the same time, you would probably be looking at, depending on your population, looking at something smaller, but then you won't have the necessary capacity if your town does grow, because I know you are working on developing, a more economic development in terms of bringing people into town as residents and as visitors. So you don't necessarily want to lose what you have to replace it, but certainly it would be much more costly to replace. And that would take a fairly detailed feasibility study to establish that in terms of what you would need in the way of facilities and your operating costs.
Thank you.
No further questions? Obviously, that was a good presentation because you're not getting any questions. Eh?
It's a pretty extensive report, so there's a lot of information in it.
Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that Council receives with thanks the Recreation Parks and Facilities Master Plan as presented by the Think Design, and be it further resolved that Council considers the plan during both the strategic planning session scheduled in May 2021 and budget deliberations scheduled for June of 2021. All in favor? Thank you. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Lance, I've made your books again, so.
Okay. Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you very much. And then,
Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that the minutes of the regular meeting held on March 24th, 2021 are adopted as circulated. All in favor? There are no petitions, so there's one piece of correspondence. Is there a need to bring it down, or is it okay? Moved by Councillor Rolla, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that correspondence item 08-01 be received and filed. All in favor? Thank you. Next item is the Council Remuneration Expense Statement for 2020. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that Council is in receipt of the 2020 Council Remuneration and Expense as required in Municipal Act 2001 S284-1, and that it be accepted as received. Any discussion with it, or are we okay? All in favor? Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I'll give a verbal update. I just want to let everyone know how successful the vaccine clinic on April 8th was at the Recreation Center. And a big thank you to the staff at the Recreation Center, the Public Works staff, and as well as the volunteer firefighters who all contributed to the success of the clinic. We do have another clinic occurring tomorrow, and 150 residents will receive vaccines. There are a couple more clinics scheduled throughout the month, again on the 22nd, and potentially combining the April 29th clinic with the May 6th clinic to vaccinate 300 residents. So that will be a large event, probably taking place most of the day. We did find that to do 200 residents, it took about 4 hours. So it was well coordinated, and everyone was really cooperative. Just a reminder, though, that we are under a provincial stay-at-home order and a provincial lockdown, and gathering is not encouraged. And we did see some gathering in the parking lot behind the rec center while people were waiting for their appointment time. So just a reminder to the public to wait in their vehicles until their appointment time and to discourage gathering. We also have asked the library to close during the operating hours of the vaccine clinic, and that's to minimize the number of people who are utilizing the parking lot, as well as the number of people going to the front doors to use the curbside pickup. And they've been very cooperative, and we really appreciate that. Another update is there was a small calculation error with the water rates that were posted earlier in the week. And that was brought to our attention. It was immediately corrected, and the correct information has been reposted. And then one last item. Over the past couple of years, the OPP has undertaken a framework review that involved both public consultation, and they have released a draft plan to establish police detachment boards. And so they are looking for municipalities to submit proposals for volunteer boards that are tied to the detachment that they have service through. So for Manitouwadge, we have the OPP operating out of the Marathon detachment. And so I have reached out to the town of Marathon to ask them if they've reviewed the information and what their thought is on establishing a joint detachment board. And there are some information sessions that are coming up. The mayor and I will attend one online next week and better understand what is required of citizen appointments, and there will also be provincial appointments. The proposals are due at the beginning of June, so there's not a lot of time to weigh in on exactly what this will look like, but we'll work closely with the town of Marathon. Geographically, we're separated, as you know, by about 100 kilometers, and there may be an opportunity to establish two boards, one for Manitouwadge and one for Marathon. But that will be up to the province to determine, and we'll find out more information about that next week at the information session as well. So the goal will be to bring back more information to you at the April 28th meeting about what that might look like, and then we'll start working on a proposal and hopefully be able to coordinate this with the town of Marathon. So we'll keep you posted.
Mm-hmm.
That's it.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat, being a bylaw to authorize the delivery of marriage solemnization services through the office of the clerk of the Corporation of the Township of Manitouwadge, be read a first and second time.
Thank you. Through the chair, as you can see in the report, Manitouwadge doesn't currently offer civil marriage services. In order to do so, we need to pass a bylaw, and that provision. So it's for your consideration.
Through the chair, I think it's a good idea. I think it's something we need because not everyone wants a religious service, and you shouldn't have to go out of your own community to have a civil ceremony. So I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, through the chair. I agree. That's something that we should have at the town hall.
Okay. And furthermore, be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-12. All in favor? Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Arola. Resolved that Council has received Administration Report ADM 2021-04 submitted by Jolene Keogh, Clerk, regarding marriage solemnization services, and be it further resolved that upon conclusion of Council's review and consideration, Council approves the bylaw to authorize the delivery of marriage solemnization services through the Office of the Clerk of the Corporation of Township of Manitowatch. All in favor? Oh, and that a fee schedule for marriage service will be brought back for consideration at the next council meeting. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson, being a bylaw to regulate the installation, repair, replacement, inspection, or alteration of a water meter, and to establish a system of recourse and penalties for the purpose of enforcing the bylaw, be read a first and second time. Now, who's speaking to this? Is it
Monsieur Jamalis?
Mayor?
Through the chair. So Council enacted bylaw 2019-09 on May 6, 2019 for the water meter bylaw. That water meter bylaw shouldn't have been enacted. That was a draft bylaw, and for some system error, instead of having the proper bylaw going through be enacted, it was the draft copy that went through. So not the proper bylaw got approved. And there were some of the changes made on the one that you have in front of you that was not present on the older bylaw. Plus, the set fine were not approved by the Attorney General. That was not approved yet, and that was posted online. So there was a bit of a mistake there. So that's why we're asking that the new water bylaw be approved. There's a set fine proposed, which is we don't approve or disapprove. We just propose those set fine to go with the bylaw. And then once this bylaw gets approved, then the proposed set fine goes down to the Attorney General. They goes through a judge, and he approves the set fine or reduces them, or he does whatever he likes. So before the set fine gets posted, they have to be approved by the Attorney General's office.
Okay. Now, should we rescind the old bylaw?
So the old bylaw be rescinded, and then the new bylaw.
We don't have a
approved.
resolution to rescind the old bylaw?
Through the chair, it's in the bylaw itself to rescind the previous bylaw.
Oh, it does say right on
It's written in the bylaw.
Okay, all right. That's fine. Any other questions?
Through the chair, so for the fines that are currently there on the one that was approved mistakenly, so the ones that will be coming up that have to be approved by the Attorney General, how has that worked? Have there been any issues with that over?
No, there was nobody
Okay.
got charged over.
So it has been a non-issue to this point?
That's right.
Okay.
Okay, that's fine. And furthermore, be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-13. All in favor? So you have a second one as well, okay. Now, who's the, well, this is a different bylaw. Okay. Moved by Councillor Arola, seconded by Councillor Moffat, being a bylaw to delegate signing authority for checks drawn on the corporation's bank account be read a first and second time. And what are we just looking for? the authorization for this, that's all.
That's right.
Any questions?
Just the only question is what is the change?
I think we do not need every year an approval for somebody to sign the check.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the change is to remove the acting CAO for signing
Yes,
authority and
okay.
appoint the CAO as signing authority.
So it doesn't say that, but that's fine. That's
Okay,
good.
thank you.
And furthermore, be read a third time, passed and numbered as bylaw number 2021-14. All in favor? Okay. Next item is administration report, ADM 2021-05. Moved by Councillor Hudson, seconded by Councillor Moffat. Resolved that Council is in receipt of administration report ADM 2021-05 submitted by Florence McLean, CAO, regarding establishment of a personal policy binder.
Through you, Mr. Chair, the township has several personnel policies that are currently in place. Some of them are current, and such as the acting pay bylaw or policy that came forward last year, but others are quite old and in need of review. And then there are policies that are absent that we should have in place. And so the establishment of the personnel policy binder will be able to allow management and senior administration to better communicate to staff what the expectations are of council and of senior administration in the daily operation of the organization. And as you can see, the first policy put forward is to identify who qualifies as staff and an employee of the corporation.
Okay, through the chair, so is that something that we're going to, I noticed you said on the ongoing meetings, so is it like a subject per meeting that we discuss or approve?
Yes, so how we will put the policies together is I'll have the management team review the draft policies at each management team meeting. And once we come to consensus on the policy, then we'll bring them forward to council for approval. And then once council approves them, they become part of the binder and information that is shared with all staff.
Perfect. Thank you.
And it will take a few council meetings to get through approving them all.
Any further questions? Okay. And be it further resolved that upon conclusion of council's review and consideration, council approves the establishment of personnel policies that will guide the corporation with regard to administration of human resources, and further that council approves personnel policy number 2021-1, the applicability of procedures, definition of employee. All in favor? There are no motions. There's notice of motion that there's no closed session, so is there any other business? No, there's nothing there. So just move to close. Moved by Councillor Moffat, seconded by Councillor Hudson. Resolved that the regular meeting adjourn at the hour of 7:33. All in favor?